You have no business touching that.
Bradley Harris, the store manager, said coldly, his voice dripping with disdain. We don't. Nathaniel Carter froze, the sting of humiliation cutting deep, sharp as a knife. Every eye in the store turned toward him. Affluent customers dressed in designer clothes, store associates standing behind gleaming counters, all staring with judgment and thinly veiled contempt. To them, he was just another outsider, a nobody who didn't belong in this world of opulence. What they didn't know, what none of them could have imagined, was that the man standing before them in faded jeans and a worn leather jacket was the founder of Carter Luxe, the very brand they revered. Nathaniel clenched his teeth, forcing himself to stay calm. Memories of being underestimated, of enduring casual racism and judgment for the color of his skin, surged through him. He had fought his way up from nothing, building Carter Luxe to prove that luxury should be about quality and inclusivity, not privilege and prejudice. Yet here he was, witnessing firsthand the very discrimination he had vowed to eradicate in a store that bore his name. Bradley continued to eye Nathaniel with a condescending sneer.
Are you sure you can afford that?
He mocked as Nathaniel picked up a leather wallet.
I think you'd be more comfortable browsing some of our more affordable options.
His voice was thick with mockery, each word intended to wound. Anger simmered in Nathaniel's chest, but he swallowed it down, years of practice keeping his expression neutral. He couldn't blow his cover, not yet. This wasn't the moment to let rage dictate his actions. He had come to gather evidence, to witness the poison that had seeped into his beloved company. Silently, he placed the wallet back on the display and let his eyes drift over the luxurious surroundings he had once poured his soul into creating. But now, the polished marble floors and glittering chandeliers felt hollow, tarnished by the ugliness beneath. Nearby, Mia Thompson, a young sales associate, watched the scene unfold. Her face was a conflicted mask of sympathy and fear, and Nathaniel could tell she had seen this kind of behavior too many times. She was trapped, forced into silence by the oppressive culture Bradley had cultivated. The injustice wasn't just aimed at customers like him. It was crushing the spirit of employees like Mia, who had no choice but to endure. Nathaniel took a slow, steady breath, pushing down his simmering rage. The humiliation, the sneering looks, the open disrespect. These were exactly the things he had come to uncover. And now, he had all the proof he needed. It was time to dismantle the rot from within. Nathaniel Carter had built his empire on a promise. It was a promise to himself, to his late mother, who had believed in him when no one else did, and to every person who ever felt they didn't belong in spaces of wealth and luxury. As he stood among the crowd on Rodeo Drive, blending in with the casual elegance of Los Angeles, he remembered that promise. Carter Luxe wasn't supposed to be just another luxury brand. It was supposed to redefine what luxury meant, to make it about quality and inclusivity, not just exclusivity. But whispers had reached him, whispers of customers mistreated, assumptions made based on the color of their skin or the way they dressed. Nathaniel had faced prejudice before, long before his name was etched in gold lettering on storefronts across the world, and he knew he couldn't let it fester in his own company. And so, today, Nathaniel Carter wasn't the CEO of a multi-million-dollar brand. Today, he was just a man in jeans and a leather jacket, with the resolve to uncover the truth about what really happened in his stores when no one thought the owner was watching. Nathaniel Carter adjusted the brim of his baseball cap, pulling it low over his face as he stood at the edge of Rodeo Drive. The bright California sun cast a golden glow over the luxury street where the elite shopped and tourists snapped selfies in front of designer storefronts. Nathaniel fit right into the scene, dressed down in faded jeans and a worn leather jacket, his sneakers scuffed just enough to give the impression of someone who didn't belong in this high-end world. He took a deep breath, letting the familiar aroma of sun-warmed concrete and expensive perfume ground him. Despite his casual appearance, Nathaniel was far from an outsider. As the founder of Carter Luxe, the gleaming storefront a few feet away belonged to him. But today, he wasn't here as the celebrated entrepreneur or the visionary who had built a brand from nothing. Today, he was just another face in the crowd, an anonymous observer looking for the truth. Nathaniel's journey from humble beginnings to this very moment played in his mind. He remembered the small apartment where he grew up, the nights he stayed up sketching designs, and the sacrifices his mother made to give him a fighting chance. Carter Lux had become his way of honoring her legacy, a promise that he'd made good on. But that promise was under threat. Reports had surfaced about a toxic culture festering within his stores, whispers of customers and staff being mistreated. It was a betrayal of everything he stood for, and he needed to see it with his own eyes. With a firm resolve, Nathaniel crossed the street and entered his flagship store. The door swung open with a subtle chime, and he stepped into a world of polished marble floors, shimmering chandeliers, and the soft hum of classical music. His heart sank almost immediately, though, as he noticed the first flicker of condescension in the eyes of Bradley Harris, the franchise owner, who was eyeing him with barely concealed disdain. Nathaniel was here for answers. What he'd find might change everything. Nathaniel's entry into the Carter Lux store was greeted with an air of disinterest that bordered on disdain. The space he had painstakingly designed to be a welcoming blend of luxury and comfort seemed almost alien to him now. Polished marble floors gleamed under crystal chandeliers, and the soft strains of classical music played in the background, but there was a tension beneath the surface, a stiffness that had no place in his vision for the brand. Bradley Harris, the store's franchise owner, stood behind a counter, overseeing the operations with a practiced, patronizing smile. His graying hair was slicked back, and his suit, perfectly tailored but straining slightly at the buttons, hinted at a man who liked to project power. As Nathaniel approached a display of designer handbags, Bradley's eyes flickered toward him. The smile slipped, replaced by a slight narrowing of his gaze. Nathaniel pretended not to notice. He'd learned long ago to control his expressions, to mask his reactions. Instead, he allowed himself a moment of silent observation. He picked up a leather clutch, running his fingers over the fine craftsmanship, while Bradley watched him with poorly disguised suspicion. "Excuse me," Nathaniel said, keeping his voice light and casual. "Can you tell me more about this?" Bradley approached, but his steps were slow, deliberate, as if he were approaching a problem rather than a potential sale. "That's one of our premium designs," he replied, his tone clipped and dismissive. "It might not be what you're looking for." Nathaniel looked up, feigning confusion. "Why's that?" Bradley's lips thinned into a line. "Well, it's quite exclusive and expensive," he added, with a condescending emphasis that made Nathaniel's jaw tighten. "We have more accessible options that might suit your needs." Nathaniel's grip on the clutch tightened imperceptibly, but his smile never wavered. This was exactly what he had come to see. Bradley's attitude was emblematic of everything he'd heard in those whispered reports. But Nathaniel wasn't here to react emotionally. He was here to gather evidence. He placed the clutch back on the display, nodding politely. "Thanks for letting me know," he said, stepping away from the display with a calm he didn't feel. Out of the corner of his eye, Nathaniel noticed Mia Thompson, a young sales associate standing near a jewelry display. Her posture was tense, and she looked as if she wanted to intervene, but her gaze kept darting back to Bradley, who still stood watching Nathaniel with suspicion. Mia's discomfort was palpable, and it told Nathaniel everything he needed to know about the store's culture. If the staff were too afraid to challenge Bradley, then the toxic environment went deeper than he'd feared. Nathaniel took a slow breath, steadying himself. He wasn't just here to observe passively. He had work to do, and he had to be smart about it. With one last glance around the store, he made his way toward the next section, his mind already turning over a plan to dig deeper. Nathaniel wandered over to the far side of the store, where a collection of luxury watches gleamed beneath glass cases. Each timepiece was a testament to craftsmanship, with intricate details and price tags that matched their exclusivity. He leaned over one of the displays, pretending to scrutinize the watches, while subtly observing the people around him. It didn't take long for Bradley Harris to make his presence known. The older man strode over, his polished shoes clicking against the marble floor, his expression a perfect mask of polite disdain. "Can I help you with something?" he asked, though his tone made it clear he didn't believe Nathaniel could afford even a glimpse at the merchandise. Nathaniel looked up, meeting Bradley's gaze with a carefully composed smile. "Yes," he replied smoothly. "I'm interested in this one." He pointed to a sleek platinum timepiece that sparkled under the display lights. Bradley's eyes narrowed slightly, and a hint of annoyance flickered across his face. "That's one of our most exclusive models," he said, emphasizing the word exclusive as if Nathaniel were trespassing. It's handcrafted in Switzerland, made with only the finest materials, and costs over $200,000. Nathaniel's smile didn't falter, though he could feel his patience beginning to thin. "It sounds impressive," he said. "What makes it worth the price?" Bradley sighed, the sound heavy with irritation, as if explaining the watch's value were an inconvenience. "As I said, it's made with the finest materials. Only a select few are produced each year. It's a collector's piece, meant for serious buyers." There it was again. The assumption, the thinly veiled disbelief that Nathaniel could ever be a serious buyer. He glanced sideways and caught Mia Thompson's eyes. She looked away quickly, but not before he saw the sympathy and embarrassment she felt on his behalf. Nathaniel felt a flicker of hope that at least one person in the store seemed to understand how wrong this was. But sympathy wasn't enough. Change had to come from the top, and that was why he was here. He straightened, placing his hands casually in his pockets. "I see," he said. "Well, thank you for the information." Bradley's expression soured, clearly expecting Nathaniel to slink away, but Nathaniel lingered a moment longer, letting the silence stretch uncomfortably. Bradley shifted, growing visibly irritated. "If you're not interested in purchasing," he said stiffly, "perhaps you'd prefer to browse other sections." Nathaniel's smile turned razor-sharp. "I'll keep that in mind," he replied, then turned and walked away, leaving Bradley to bristle in silent indignation. Nathaniel made his way to the clothing section of the Carter Luxe store, his steps unhurried as he approached a display of Italian wool coats. The coats were impeccably tailored, the kind of craftsmanship that made even the most discerning clients reach for their wallets. He ran his fingers over the fabric of a dark charcoal coat, noting the subtle stitching and the luxurious weight of the material. As he examined the coat, Bradley Harris shadowed him, his irritation barely concealed. The older man's posture was rigid, his eyes narrowing with every second Nathaniel spent in his store. Nathaniel knew this was a test, but it was one Bradley was failing spectacularly. Nathaniel lifted the coat from the rack, holding it in front of himself as if picturing how it would look. "Excuse me," he said, his voice even. "Can you tell me more about this coat?" Bradley sighed as if explaining the coat's features to Nathaniel was beneath him. He approached slowly, his hands clasped behind his back, and forced a tight smile. "That's one of our premium items," he said. "Handcrafted from the finest Italian wool. Very exclusive." He paused, his eyes scanning Nathaniel's outfit, and his fake smile faded. "It's priced at $2,500, he added, enunciating every word as if Nathaniel needed the price explained to him in detail. Nathaniel met Bradley's condescending gaze and raised an eyebrow. "It's beautiful craftsmanship," he said, deliberately keeping his tone polite. "What makes it worth that price?" Bradley's mask slipped, revealing a flicker of annoyance. "Our regular customers," he said, his voice tight, "know what they can afford and what they can't. We cater to a very specific clientele, people who appreciate quality and have the means to purchase it." Nathaniel placed the coat back on the rack, taking his time. He could feel the frustration simmering beneath his calm exterior, but he forced himself to remain composed. He'd dealt with people like Bradley before, people who assumed that wealth and status could be determined by appearances alone. It was a lesson he had learned young and one he had vowed to change in his stores. "I appreciate quality," Nathaniel replied evenly, meeting Bradley's gaze. "And I think I might be interested in this coat." Bradley's eyes narrowed further, disbelief and irritation battling for dominance. He took a step closer, lowering his voice. "Look," he said, his tone condescending, "perhaps you should look at some of our more affordable options. There's no point in wasting time on items that are out of your range." Nathaniel's smile never wavered, but his patience was wearing thin. He held Bradley's gaze, his voice firm but controlled. "You don't know what my range is," he said quietly, "and assuming you do, based on how I look, is not good business practice." Bradley's expression tightened, but he didn't back down. "We have an image to maintain," he said slowly, as if explaining a basic concept. "We can't have just anyone come in and handle our most valuable items. It's about preserving the brand." Nathaniel's temper flared, but he forced himself to take a slow breath. He glanced around the store, taking in the polished marble floors, the carefully curated displays, the other customers who were beginning to notice the tension between him and Bradley. His gaze landed on Mia Thompson, who stood frozen nearby, her hands clasped in front of her as she watched the exchange with a mixture of concern and helplessness. "Thank you for your time," Nathaniel said finally, his voice cold. "I think I've seen everything I need to see." Without waiting for a response, he turned and walked toward the door. He could feel Bradley's eyes on his back, the silent judgment radiating from the man in waves. But Nathaniel didn't look back. He pushed open the door, the chime ringing softly as he stepped outside into the cool Los Angeles air. His mind raced, his anger bubbling beneath the surface. This wasn't just about a coat or a watch. It was about the values he had built Carter Lux on, values that were clearly not being upheld in this store. As he walked away, his resolve solidified. He had hoped to find that the complaints he'd heard were exaggerated, but now he knew they were true. Change was necessary, and it was going to start at the top. The next morning, Nathaniel prepared himself for a second visit to the Carter Lux store. The memory of Bradley's condescension and the uncomfortable atmosphere lingered, but he knew his work was far from done. This time, he dressed just as casually, slipping into dark jeans, a simple black hoodie, and the same scuffed sneakers. He needed to remain unrecognizable, an ordinary man whose presence wasn't enough to command respect. The flagship store was quieter than the day before, with fewer customers milling about. Nathaniel stepped inside, the chime above the door ringing softly. He scanned the room, his eyes landing on Mia Thompson, who was carefully restocking a jewelry display. She looked tired, dark circles under her eyes, but she moved with a quiet efficiency that spoke of her dedication. Nathaniel approached the jewelry section, where the cases sparkled with diamond bracelets, intricate necklaces, and platinum rings. He paused in front of a particularly dazzling necklace, the diamonds catching the light like tiny stars. Mia noticed him almost immediately, and though she hesitated, she forced a smile and walked over. "Good morning," she greeted him, her voice polite but cautious. "Can I help you with anything?" Nathaniel returned her smile, noting the way her eyes flicked nervously toward the back of the store. "This necklace," he said, gesturing toward the display case. "It's stunning. Can you tell me more about it?" Mia opened her mouth to respond, but her gaze drifted over Nathaniel's shoulder, and her smile faltered. Nathaniel didn't have to turn around to know who had appeared. Bradley Harris's presence was palpable, his disapproval hanging heavy in the air. The older man strode over, his shoes clicking on the marble floor, his expression a mixture of annoyance and suspicion. "Is there a problem here?" Bradley asked, his voice clipped. Mia stiffened, her hands clenching at her sides. "No problem, Mr. Harris," she said, her voice small. "I was just telling this customer about one of our signature pieces." Bradley's eyes shifted to Nathaniel, and the irritation he tried to mask was clear. "I don't think that's necessary," he said, directing his words at Mia but making sure Nathaniel could hear. "We have other pieces that might be more appropriate." Nathaniel's jaw tightened, but he forced himself to remain calm. He turned to Bradley, his smile polite but his eyes cold. "I'd like to see this one," he said, his voice firm. "If that's all right." Bradley crossed his arms, his posture stiffening. "Our policy is to reserve pieces like this for customers who are serious about purchasing," he said. "We can't have just anyone trying out our most valuable items." Nathaniel could feel the tension radiating from Mia, who stood frozen beside the jewelry case. Her eyes darted between Bradley and Nathaniel, and she looked as though she wanted to speak but couldn't find the words. It was clear she was caught in a difficult position, one that reflected the toxic culture Bradley had fostered in the store. Nathaniel took a slow breath, the weight of the situation pressing down on him. He turned back to Mia, his gaze softening. "It's all right," he said, his voice gentle. "I don't want to get you in trouble." Mia's eyes widened slightly, and for a moment she seemed torn between relief and shame. Nathaniel's heart ached for her, for the way she was trapped in a job where she felt powerless. He knew he couldn't leave things as they were. Change was needed, but he had to be strategic. He looked at Bradley, his smile never wavering. "I'll take your advice and look around," he said, his tone deceptively calm. Bradley seemed satisfied with this, his posture relaxing slightly, but Nathaniel caught the way the man's eyes lingered on him, still filled with judgment. Nathaniel stepped away from the jewelry section, But he didn't leave the store. Instead, he wandered toward the back, where he could observe without drawing too much attention. From his new vantage point, he watched as Bradley pulled Mia aside, his voice low but firm. "You need to be more careful," Bradley scolded, his tone harsh. "We have a reputation to uphold. Don't waste your time with people who clearly don't belong here." Mia's shoulders hunched, her fingers fidgeting nervously with the edge of her blouse. "I understand," she murmured, her voice barely audible. Nathaniel clenched his fists, his anger simmering just beneath the surface. He had seen enough to know that Bradley's behavior wasn't a one-time incident. It was a pattern, a mindset that had poisoned the culture of the store. And it wasn't just about how he treated customers. It was about how he treated his employees too. But he also saw something else, the quiet resilience in Mia's eyes, the way she bit her lip and nodded, even though it was clear she didn't agree with Bradley's views. She was trying to do her job, trying to keep her head down and survive in an environment that didn't value her voice. Nathaniel's heart hardened with determination. He couldn't stand by and let this continue. But he needed to do more than just confront Bradley. He needed to empower people like Mia and make lasting changes to the company he had built. With that, a plan began to form in his mind, one that would expose the truth and give those who deserved it a chance to shine. He had come to gather evidence, and he had more than enough. Now it was time to act. Nathaniel didn't waste any time. The following morning, he made his way to Carter Luck's headquarters, a sleek glass-walled building in the heart of Los Angeles. The air inside was cool and hushed, with the faint hum of productivity filling the halls. Employees moved purposefully, oblivious to the storm Nathaniel was about to unleash. He stepped into the executive conference room, a spacious area with floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the city skyline. Nathaniel took his seat at the head of the long, polished table, his expression calm but resolute. This was the place where decisions were made, and today he would make sure the right one was executed. He had arranged for Bradley Harris to meet him under the pretense of discussing store performance and future goals. Bradley had no idea what was coming. Nathaniel's assistant, a sharp and efficient woman named Erica White, stood by the door, clipboard in hand. She offered him a supportive smile, having witnessed firsthand the fallout of Bradley's behavior. "Mr. Harris has arrived," Erica announced, her voice steady. "Send him in," Nathaniel replied, his voice even. The door opened and Bradley Harris walked in, his usual air of confidence wrapped around him like an expensive suit. He had dressed impeccably, expecting to impress, but his arrogance was palpable. His gaze flickered with curiosity as he noticed Nathaniel seated at the head of the table. Clearly, Bradley had expected a routine meeting with a lower-level executive. "Good morning, Mr. Carter," Bradley greeted, his voice full of forced politeness. "I wasn't expecting to see you here. Is everything all right?" Nathaniel leaned forward, his hands clasped on the table. "No, Bradley," he said, his voice calm but carrying an undercurrent of authority. "Everything is not all right. Please, take a seat." Bradley hesitated, a flicker of confusion crossing his face, but he obeyed, pulling out a chair and sitting down. The room fell silent, the tension thickening as Nathaniel's gaze remained locked on Bradley. It was time for the confrontation that Nathaniel had prepared for. "I'm here to discuss some serious concerns about your behavior at the store," Nathaniel began, his tone measured but firm. "Concerns that have come to my attention through multiple channels, including my own observations." Bradley's face registered confusion, quickly followed by a nervous laugh. "Concerns?" he echoed. "Mr. Carter, I've been running the store the way I always have. Sales are up, and the brand image remains strong. If there's an issue, I'd be more than happy to address it." Nathaniel's eyes narrowed, and he leaned in slightly. "Sales numbers aren't the issue here, Bradley," he said. "The issue is how you treat people, both customers and employees. Yesterday, I visited the store as a regular shopper. You didn't recognize me because I came in dressed casually, without the usual trappings of wealth or status. And what I witnessed was appalling." Realization dawned on Bradley's face, his eyes widening with a mixture of disbelief and panic. His mouth opened, then closed, as he struggled to form a coherent response. You were there?" he stammered. "I didn't know it was you, sir. If I had—" "That's exactly the problem," Nathaniel interrupted, his voice as sharp as a blade. You shouldn't have to know who someone is to treat them with basic human decency. This company stands for inclusivity and respect, values that you've completely undermined with your behavior. You made assumptions, you were dismissive, and you treated potential customers like they didn't belong. Bradley shifted uncomfortably, his confidence crumbling. Mr. Carter, I was just trying to maintain the brand's image, he defended himself. Our clientele expects exclusivity, a certain atmosphere. It's nothing personal. Nathaniel's patience was running thin. Nothing personal? He echoed, his voice cold. It's personal to every person who walks into that store and is made to feel unwelcome. It's personal to every employee who's forced to work under your toxic leadership. This isn't just bad for business. It's morally wrong. Bradley swallowed hard, his face growing pale. Please, Mr. Carter, he pleaded, desperation creeping into his voice. I've been with this company for years. I've helped build the store's reputation. I can change. I'll implement new training programs. Do whatever it takes. Nathaniel's gaze didn't waver. It's too late for that, Bradley, he said, his tone final. Your attitude isn't something that can be fixed with a simple training session. It's a fundamental problem with how you view people, and I won't allow it to continue. Bradley's eyes filled with panic. You can't be serious, he whispered. You're making a mistake. I'm one of the best managers you have. Nathaniel stood, his authority filling the room. No, Bradley. The mistake was allowing you to stay in a position where you could harm the values we stand for, he said. Effective immediately, I'm terminating your franchise agreement. Security will escort you out, and you'll receive instructions on the termination process. Bradley shot to his feet, his face flushed with disbelief and anger. You'll regret this, he spat. I'm the best manager this company has. Nathaniel remained calm, his expression unyielding. No, he said. I won't regret protecting my company and the people who make it thrive. The door opened and Erica signaled for security to enter. Bradley's eyes darted around, desperation giving way to resignation as he realized there was no escaping the consequences of his actions. He allowed himself to be escorted out, his footsteps echoing down the hallway. As the door closed behind him, the room fell silent once more. Nathaniel let out a slow breath, feeling the weight of the moment settle over him. It wasn't just about firing Bradley, it was about sending a clear message. Respect and integrity were non-negotiable. Bring in Mia Thompson, Nathaniel instructed Erica. He needed to ensure that those who had been harmed by Bradley's actions were given a voice. A few minutes later, Mia entered the room, her hands trembling slightly. She looked nervous but determined, her eyes searching Nathaniel's for some sign of what was to come. Thank you for coming, Mia, Nathaniel said gently. I wanted to hear from you directly about your experiences working under Bradley. Mia took a deep breath, her voice steady despite the nerves. It's been difficult, she admitted. Bradley created a hostile environment. He made assumptions about people, treated customers and staff based on appearances. We all felt powerless to speak up, but we wanted things to change. Nathaniel listened intently, nodding. Your strength and professionalism haven't gone unnoticed, he said. And that's why I'd like to offer you the position of interim manager. You've shown integrity and a genuine commitment to treating people with respect. I believe you can lead this store into a new era. Mia's eyes widened, shock and hope flooding her face. Interim manager? She echoed. I don't know what to say. Say yes, Nathaniel said with a smile, and know that you'll have my full support. Tears filled Mia's eyes, but she blinked them back, nodding. Yes, she said, her voice breaking. Thank you, Mr. Carter. I won't let you down. Nathaniel stood and extended his hand. I know you won't, he replied. Let's make this store what it should be, a place where everyone feels valued. As Mia left the room, her steps steadier than before, Nathaniel felt a renewed sense of purpose. The road ahead would be challenging, but he was committed to seeing it through. Today was the beginning of a new chapter, one where Carter Luxe would truly embody the values he had built it on. Mia Thompson stood in front of the Carter Luxe staff, her heart pounding in her chest. The private conference room at the company headquarters was packed, the employees' faces a mix of curiosity and trepidation. Nathaniel Carter had asked her to lead this meeting, and the weight of that responsibility pressed heavily on her shoulders. But she refused to let fear win. She had dreamed of making a difference, and now she had the chance. Nathaniel stood beside her, offering a calm, reassuring presence. His support gave Mia strength, and she took a deep breath, her hands trembling only slightly as she held a clipboard filled with notes. "Thank you all for coming," she began, her voice clear and steady. "I know the past few days have been difficult. Change isn't easy, and I want to be transparent about what's happening and why." A ripple of murmurs spread through the room, and Mia caught the eye of James, a young sales associate who had always been kind to her. He gave her a small nod of encouragement, and she pressed on. "Bradley Harris is no longer with the company," Mia continued. "His departure was necessary to realign our store's operations with the values we stand for: respect, inclusivity, and excellence. Mr. Carter has made it clear that these values are non-negotiable." Nathaniel stepped forward, his presence commanding yet approachable. "I want to make it clear that your jobs are secure," he said, his voice calm but firm. "We value each and every one of you, and we're here to support you as we make these changes together." Mia nodded, her confidence growing. "We're introducing new training programs focused on customer service, cultural awareness, and inclusivity," she explained. "Our goal is to make sure everyone who walks through our doors feels welcome and valued, regardless of how they look or dress. We're not just a luxury brand, we're a community." James raised his hand, his brow furrowed in concern. "What exactly does this training involve?" he asked. "And how long will it last?" Mia glanced at Nathaniel, who gave her a supportive smile, signaling for her to take the lead. She turned back to James, her voice steady. "The training will cover everything from how to greet customers to handling difficult situations with professionalism and respect," she said. "We'll have workshops on cultural awareness, and the sessions will be interactive and ongoing. Our goal is continuous growth, not just a one-time event." Another employee, Lisa, an older woman who had worked at Carter Luxe for over a decade, spoke up. "And what if we see behavior that doesn't align with these values?" she asked, her tone cautious. "Do we report it directly to you, Mia?" Nathaniel stepped in, his gaze sweeping the room. "Yes, you can report any concerns to Mia or come directly to me," he said. "We're building a culture of accountability, and that means everyone's voice matters. We want you to feel safe and supported in speaking up. We're not just paying lip service to these values. They're the foundation of everything we do." Mia watched as the tension in the room began to dissipate. Employees exchanged glances, their expressions softening as they realized they were being heard and valued. Mia's heart swelled with hope. The culture of fear that Bradley had cultivated was beginning to break. "Are there any other questions?" Mia asked, her voice gentler now. Claire, a young cashier who often worked the busiest shifts, raised her hand. "What if a customer comes in with the same attitude Bradley had?" she asked, her voice small. "How do we handle situations where people are rude or discriminatory?" Mia felt a surge of pride for the bravery it took Claire to voice her concerns. "That's a great question, Claire," she replied. "Part of our training will include conflict resolution and de-escalation techniques. If a customer is behaving inappropriately or making you feel uncomfortable, don't hesitate to call on a manager. We'll support you and ensure that no one has to tolerate disrespect." Nathaniel nodded in agreement. "Remember," he added, "you're not alone. We're a team, and we'll work together to make sure everyone, staff and customers alike, feels respected." The staff seemed to relax further, the weight of uncertainty lifting. Mia could see the shift happening before her eyes, the hope and cautious optimism replacing the fear that had once been so pervasive. "Thank you all for your time and your dedication," Nathaniel concluded. "I believe in each of you, and I'm confident we can make this store a model of what Carter Luxe stands for. Let's work together to make that happen." As the meeting wrapped up, employees began to file out, some stopping to thank Mia and ask questions about the upcoming training sessions. Others exchanged relieved smiles, feeling more hopeful than they had in a long time. Mia felt a wave of relief, the initial anxiety of the meeting giving way to a sense of purpose. Nathaniel turned to Mia as the room emptied. "You did an excellent job," he said, his voice warm. "The staff respects you, and they're looking to you for guidance. Keep building on that momentum." Mia's eyes shone with determination. "Thank you, Mr. Carter," she said. "I won't let you down. I believe we can make a real difference here." Nathaniel smiled, his confidence in her unwavering. "I know you will," he replied. "And remember, I'm just a phone call away if you need anything." Mia watched him leave, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. She had the support of a powerful leader, but more importantly, she had the opportunity to make real change. For the first time in a long while, she felt hopeful, not just for herself, but for every person who walked through the doors of Carter Luxe. The next few weeks brought a whirlwind of activity to the Carter Luxe flagship store. Mia Thompson dove headfirst into her new role as interim manager, working tirelessly to implement the changes she and Nathaniel had promised. Training sessions were scheduled, new policies were drafted, and every member of the staff was required to participate in workshops focused on inclusivity and cultural awareness. On a bright Monday morning, the first training session took place in the store's break room. Mia stood at the front, armed with a projector and a stack of carefully prepared notes. She was nervous, but she had spent days preparing, and she was determined to set the right tone. "Welcome, everyone," Mia began, her voice steady despite the flutter of anxiety in her chest. The staff members, some curious, others skeptical, sat in a semicircle, watching her closely. James, the young sales associate, leaned forward, clearly interested, while Lisa, the veteran employee, folded her arms, her expression guarded. Mia smiled, meeting each person's eyes. "We're here today to talk about how we can create a better experience for everyone, customers and staff alike. This training isn't just about meeting company standards. It's about understanding each other and treating everyone with respect, no matter their background." She clicked the remote and the first slide of her presentation appeared. The power of respect and inclusion. The room was quiet, but Mia could sense a shift. People were listening. As she went through each slide, she used examples that resonated with her team, drawing on experiences they could all relate to. She spoke about handling difficult situations, diffusing conflicts with grace, and understanding unconscious biases. The training wasn't just about rules, it was about changing mindsets. Halfway through the session, Mia paused and took a breath. "I know some of you may feel resistant to these changes," she acknowledged, her voice gentle. "And I understand. Change is hard, especially when it means confronting uncomfortable truths. But this is our chance to create a space where everyone feels valued." Lisa, who had remained silent, raised her hand. "I've been here for over a decade," she said, her tone cautious. "I've seen a lot of managers come and go. What makes you think this time will be any different?" Mia met Lisa's gaze, her expression sincere. "Because this time, we have the full support of Mr. Carter," she said. "And because I believe in all of you, we're not just checking boxes, we're building something meaningful. But it will only work if we do it together." Lisa studied Mia for a moment, then nodded slowly, her arms relaxing. It wasn't a full endorsement, but it was a start. Mia pressed on, encouraged by the small victory. By the end of the session, the energy in the room had shifted. People were talking, sharing ideas, and asking questions. James approached Mia afterward, his eyes bright with enthusiasm. "That was great," he said. "I feel like we're finally moving in the right direction." Mia's heart swelled with pride. "Thank you, James," she replied. "We still have a lot of work to do, but I'm glad to hear you're on board." The store's transformation, the impact of the training sessions became evident over the next few weeks. The atmosphere in the store began to change, becoming lighter and more welcoming. Staff members greeted customers with genuine smiles, and there was a renewed sense of teamwork among the employees. Mia made a point to be present on the sales floor, offering guidance and support, and her leadership quickly earned the respect of her team. But not everyone was immediately on board. Some employees, like Ben, a sales associate who had been close to Bradley, resisted the new policies. He muttered under his breath about unnecessary changes and rolled his eyes during team meetings. Mia knew she couldn't win everyone over at once, but she remained patient, addressing his concerns calmly and privately. One afternoon, a high-profile customer entered the store, Gabriela Ruiz, a well-known actress and fashion icon. Her presence sent a ripple of excitement through the staff, but it also presented a test of the store's new commitment to respect and inclusivity. Gabriela was known for her impeccable taste and her no-nonsense attitude. Mia took a deep breath and stepped forward to greet Gabriela herself. "Welcome to Carter Luxe, Ms. Ruiz," she said, her voice steady. It's an honor to have you here. How can we assist you today? Gabriella's gaze swept over Mia, her expression neutral but curious. I'm looking for something special, she said. Something that will make a statement at the premiere next week. Mia didn't flinch. We have several options I'd be happy to show you, she replied. If you'll follow me, we can find something extraordinary. As Mia led Gabriella through the store, she could feel the weight of every employee's eyes on her. This moment mattered. If Mia handled it well, it would prove that the new culture she was fostering was taking root. Gabriella was discerning, asking detailed questions and demanding excellence, but Mia remained poised and knowledgeable, guiding her through the collection with grace. Finally, Gabriella selected an exquisite sapphire necklace, her eyes lighting up. This is perfect, she said, turning to Mia with a rare smile. Thank you. Your service has been exceptional. Mia's heart soared. It's our pleasure, she said, and she meant it. As Gabriella completed her purchase, the staff broke into relieved smiles, and the store buzzed with a sense of accomplishment. Despite the progress, challenges still arose. One afternoon, Ben confronted Mia in the stockroom, his frustration boiling over. I don't get it, he said, his voice tight with anger. Why do we have to change everything? It was fine the way it was. Mia took a steadying breath. She knew this conversation was coming. I understand that it's hard, Ben, she said. But fine isn't good enough when people are being treated unfairly. We're building something better, and I need you to be part of that. Ben crossed his arms, his expression defiant. What if I don't agree with the direction we're going? Mia's voice softened. Then I hope you'll take the time to think about why these changes are important, she said. But if you can't support the new culture we're creating, you'll have to make a decision about whether this is the right place for you. Ben stared at her, his jaw clenched, but he didn't argue further. He left the stockroom, and Mia knew that some battles would take longer to win, but she also knew that she had to stand firm, even when it was difficult. A new beginning. By the end of the month, the changes at Carter Luxe were undeniable. Customers began leaving positive reviews, praising the welcoming atmosphere and attentive service. The fashion blogger who had witnessed Nathaniel's first encounter with Bradley returned, writing a glowing article about the store's transformation. The article went viral, and the store's reputation soared. Nathaniel visited the store unannounced one afternoon, wanting to see the progress for himself. He stepped inside and the familiar chime sounded. This time, he was greeted warmly by James, who had fully embraced the new culture. Welcome, Mr. Carter, James said with a wide smile. It's great to see you. Nathaniel's heart swelled with pride as he looked around. The store was vibrant, the staff engaged, and the customers happy. Mia spotted him and made her way over, her eyes shining with excitement. It's really happening, she said, her voice filled with joy. The store feels different, better. Nathaniel nodded, his eyes misting with emotion. You've done an incredible job, Mia, he said. This is the store I always envisioned. Mia's smile was radiant, and in that moment, Nathaniel knew he had made the right decision. Carter Luxe was more than a luxury brand. It was a place where everyone, from employees to customers, felt valued. And that was the legacy he had always dreamed of. It had been a month since Bradley Harris had been removed from his position at Carter Luxe, but the fallout of his actions still lingered in Nathaniel's mind. As he stood in his office, staring out at the sprawling Los Angeles skyline, he wondered if Bradley had learned anything from the experience. He hadn't expected to hear from the man again, but life often had a way of throwing surprises. That afternoon, as the sun dipped lower in the sky, Erica, Nathaniel's assistant, knocked lightly on his office door. Mr. Carter, she said, her voice hesitant. Bradley Harris is here. He's asking to speak with you. Nathaniel turned slowly, processing the news. Bradley's return was unexpected, but Nathaniel had learned to handle the unexpected with grace. Send him in, he said, his voice calm and unreadable. A few moments later, Bradley entered the office. He was a shadow of the arrogant man who had once ruled the Carter Luxe store with an iron fist. His once pristine suit was rumpled, and dark circles shadowed his eyes. There was a desperation in his posture, a vulnerability that Nathaniel hadn't seen before. Mr. Carter, Bradley began, his voice cracking. He took a shaky breath and tried again. Thank you for seeing me. Nathaniel gestured to the chair across from his desk. Take a seat, he said, his tone even. He watched as Bradley sank into the chair, his hands clasped tightly in his lap. Bradley swallowed, his Adam's apple bobbing. I know I'm probably the last person you want to see, he said, his voice thick with regret. But I've had time to think about everything, about what I did, the way I treated people. I made a terrible mistake. I let my prejudices and arrogance blind me, and I hurt people who deserved better. Nathaniel remained silent, his gaze steady. He had heard apologies before, but he knew it wasn't the words that mattered. It was the actions that followed. Bradley's eyes were pleading, his desperation evident. Please, Mr. Carter, he continued. I need another chance. I know I don't deserve it, but I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make things right. I've started volunteering at community centers, working with people I used to judge unfairly. I'm trying to change, to be better. Please, let me prove that I'm not beyond redemption. Nathaniel leaned back in his chair, considering Bradley's words. The man in front of him was broken, humbled, but Nathaniel had to weigh the sincerity of his repentance against the damage he had done. He thought of Mia, of the staff who had suffered under Bradley's leadership, and of the values he had built his company on. Redemption, Nathaniel said slowly, isn't something you can earn with words alone. It's a journey, one that requires genuine change and a willingness to put in the work. You hurt a lot of people, Bradley. You betrayed the trust of your staff and tarnished the values we stand for. Bradley's face crumpled, and he nodded, tears glistening in his eyes. I know, he whispered, and I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make amends. If there's any way I can prove myself, please, tell me. Nathaniel studied him, searching for any hint of deception, but all he saw was a man desperate to make things right, a man who had been humbled by the weight of his mistakes. It wasn't enough to undo the harm, but it was a start. I'm not going to give you your old position back, Nathaniel said firmly. The store is thriving under Mia's leadership, and she's earned the respect of her team. But, he paused and Bradley's eyes widened with a flicker of hope. If you're serious about change, there may be a way for you to contribute, under very different circumstances. Bradley sat up straighter, his eyes wide with anticipation. Anything, he said. I'll do anything. Nathaniel folded his hands on the desk. I'm willing to offer you a position in our community outreach department, he said. You'll work with underprivileged communities, organizing events and initiatives that align with our mission of inclusivity and respect. It won't be glamorous, and it won't come with the perks you're used to, but it will be meaningful, and it will give you a chance to make a real impact. Tears spilled down Bradley's cheeks, and he nodded, his voice breaking. Thank you, he whispered. I won't let you down. I promise. Nathaniel's expression remained guarded. I hope you mean that, he said, because this is your last chance. If I see even a hint of your old behavior, you'll be out for good. Bradley wiped his eyes, determination hardening his expression. I understand, he said, and I won't waste this opportunity. Thank you for giving me a chance to make things right. Nathaniel nodded, but he knew it wasn't his forgiveness alone that mattered. Bradley had a long road ahead, and only time would tell if he was truly capable of change. Later that day, Nathaniel visited the Carter Luxe store to share the news with Mia. He found her near the jewelry display, assisting a customer with her characteristic warmth and professionalism. When she finished, she turned to Nathaniel, her smile bright. Mr. Carter, she greeted him, what brings you here today? Nathaniel took a breath. I wanted to discuss something important with you, he said. It's about Bradley. Mia's smile faded, and her brow furrowed with concern. Bradley? She echoed, her voice wary. Nathaniel explained the situation, watching Mia's expression shift from surprise to contemplation. When he finished, she crossed her arms, her gaze thoughtful. Do you think he's really capable of change? She asked. Nathaniel sighed. I don't know, he admitted. But I believe in giving people the opportunity to redeem themselves, as long as they're willing to do the hard work. I offered him a position in community outreach, away from the store, where he can focus on making a positive impact. Mia was silent for a moment, then nodded slowly. I trust your judgment, she said, And I hope he takes this chance seriously. But I also hope he knows that we won't tolerate any more of his old behavior. Nathaniel's lips curved into a small smile. He knows, he assured her. And if he fails to show real change, he's out for good. Mia's shoulders relaxed, and she offered Nathaniel a grateful smile. Thank you for considering how this would affect all of us, she said. I appreciate your commitment to our values. Nathaniel's heart warmed. It's people like you who make this company what it is, he said. And I'm committed to making sure we continue to move forward. Mia's smile widened, and she nodded. Then let's keep making a difference, she said. Together. The buzz around Carter Luxe's transformation had reached the ears of Los Angeles's elite, and the store was busier than ever. The staff had grown more confident under Mia's leadership, their interactions with customers warm and genuine. But Nathaniel knew that true change wasn't just about training or policies. It was about how his team would respond when truly tested. That test arrived on a bustling Friday afternoon, when the store was filled with shoppers. Mia was assisting a young couple near the accessories section when she noticed a familiar face walk through the door. Her breath caught for a moment, and the entire staff seemed to hold their collective breath. It was Celeste Davenport, a celebrity known not only for her stunning red carpet appearances, but also for her reputation as a demanding and often difficult customer. Celeste's entourage trailed behind her, and the energy in the store shifted immediately. Staff members exchanged nervous glances, remembering past encounters with high-profile clients that had ended in disaster. Mia straightened her shoulders, her heart pounding. This was the moment she'd been preparing for. She could feel Nathaniel's presence nearby, watching with a mixture of support and curiosity. If Mia could handle this, it would solidify her position as a leader and prove that the new culture they had built could withstand any challenge. Mia approached Celeste with a smile that was both warm and professional. "Welcome to Carter Luxe, Ms. Davenport," she said smoothly. "It's a pleasure to have you here. How can we assist you today?" Celeste's eyes swept over Mia, her expression cool and unreadable. "I need something for an event next week," she said, her voice clipped. "Something dramatic. Make sure I'm not disappointed." Mia's smile didn't waver. "Of course," she replied. "We have a few pieces in mind that I think you'll love. Would you like to start with our newest collection of evening gowns?" Celeste arched an eyebrow, clearly testing Mia's composure. "Let's see them then," she said, her tone challenging. Mia led Celeste and her entourage to a section of the store where elegant gowns hung on gold racks. She took a moment to explain the craftsmanship behind each piece, highlighting the details that made them unique. As Celeste examined the gowns, she made several sharp comments, pointing out imperfections that most people wouldn't have noticed. Mia remained composed, responding to each criticism with calm professionalism. "I understand," she said after Celeste dismissed a gown for its stitching. "Attention to detail is important. Let me show you another option that may suit your preferences." Nathaniel watched from a distance, his heart swelling with pride. Mia handled the situation with grace, never losing her poise or her genuine warmth. The other staff members seemed to take their cues from her, stepping up to assist other customers with renewed confidence. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Celeste's expression softened. She picked up a sleek emerald green gown and held it up to the light. "This one," she said, a hint of satisfaction in her voice. "It's perfect." Mia's smile widened. "Excellent choice," she said. "It's one of our finest pieces, and I'm confident you'll look stunning in it. Would you like to try it on?" Celeste nodded, and for the first time, a genuine smile crossed her lips. "Yes," she said, her tone almost warm. "Thank you. You've been very helpful." Mia escorted Celeste to the fitting area, her heart soaring. She had passed the test, and she knew it. As she returned to the main floor, James gave her a thumbs up, and Lisa offered a nod of approval. The staff had rallied behind Mia, and the store felt more united than ever. Later that afternoon, after Celeste had completed her purchase and left the store, Nathaniel approached Mia. The staff gathered around, sensing that something important was about to happen. "Mia," Nathaniel began, his voice filled with genuine admiration. "What you did today was extraordinary. Handling a high-profile client like Celeste Davenport with such grace and professionalism is no easy feat. You've proven that you're not just a leader, but an inspiration to this entire team." Mia's cheeks flushed with pride, but she kept her composure. "Thank you, Mr. Carter," she said. "I couldn't have done it without the support of everyone here." Nathaniel turned to address the staff. "This store has come a long way," he said, "and it's because of all of you. The respect and inclusivity we've worked so hard to build are evident in the way you treat each other and our customers. This is what Carter Luxe is all about." The room erupted into applause, and Mia felt tears prick the corners of her eyes. It wasn't just about her success. It was about the team's success, about the culture they had created together. That evening, as the store quieted down, Nathaniel pulled Mia aside for a private conversation. The sunset cast golden light through the store's windows, bathing them in a warm glow. "Mia," Nathaniel said, his voice gentle, "I want to make your position as manager permanent. You've more than earned it. Your leadership has transformed this store, and I can't think of anyone better to carry us forward." Mia's eyes widened in shock and joy. "Permanent?" she echoed. I don't know what to say." "Say yes," Nathaniel replied with a smile, "and know that you'll have my full support every step of the way." Mia's voice wavered with emotion. "Yes," she said, her eyes shining. "Thank you, Mr. Carter. I promise I won't let you down." Nathaniel extended his hand, and Mia shook it firmly, feeling the weight of the moment. This was more than just a job. It was a chance to make a real difference, to continue the work she had started. As Nathaniel left the store that night, he felt an overwhelming sense of pride and fulfillment. The challenges they had faced had been difficult, but the journey had been worth it. Carter Luxe was no longer just a symbol of luxury. It was a symbol of respect, inclusion, and empowerment. The following weeks at Carter Luxe were nothing short of transformative. The changes that Mia had implemented took root, and the store continued to thrive under her permanent leadership. Customers returned, not just for the luxury products, but for the warm, welcoming atmosphere that had become a hallmark of the flagship location. Employees worked together with a newfound sense of unity, their pride in their work evident in every interaction. Nathaniel Carter made a habit of visiting the store regularly, not as a powerful CEO overseeing his business empire, but as a supportive presence there to reinforce the values he cherished. His commitment to fostering a culture of respect and inclusion had become a guiding light, not only for the store, but for the entire company. One afternoon, Nathaniel decided to conduct a final test, one that would reveal just how deeply the culture of change had been ingrained. He dressed casually once again, donning jeans and a simple sweatshirt, and entered the store as an anonymous shopper. The familiar chime above the door greeted him, and he took a moment to observe. James, the young sales associate, was assisting a customer near the watch display. His genuine smile and patient demeanor were a testament to how much he had grown since the first training sessions. Lisa was chatting with an elderly couple, her laughter ringing out warmly. And Mia was everywhere, her presence a calming and uplifting force as she checked in with her team and assisted customers herself. Nathaniel wandered over to a section of fine leather goods, picking up a sleek black wallet. He turned it over in his hands, pretending to examine it, when a voice behind him interrupted his thoughts. "Hello, welcome to Carter Luxe," said James, his smile bright and welcoming. "Is there anything I can help you with today?" Nathaniel turned, impressed by James's genuine warmth. "Just browsing for now," he replied, keeping his tone casual. "But thank you," James nodded, his expression unchanging. "Take your time," he said, "and let me know if you need any assistance." Nathaniel watched as James moved on to assist another customer, never once faltering in his kindness. The difference in the store's energy was palpable, and it filled Nathaniel with a quiet sense of pride. This was the store he had envisioned, a place where everyone felt valued, where respect was not an exception, but the standard. Just as Nathaniel was about to head to the exit, he spotted someone unexpected walking through the doors. His mother, Eleanor Carter. She was a formidable woman in her early 60s, with sharp eyes and a graceful presence that commanded attention. She hadn't informed Nathaniel of her visit, and he was curious to see how she would be received. Mia, who had been arranging a display of scarves, noticed Eleanor's entrance and approached her immediately. Her smile was warm and respectful, but there was no sign of nervousness. "Welcome to Carter Lux," Mia greeted her. "How can we make your day special today?" Eleanor studied Mia for a moment, her eyes narrowing slightly. "I'm looking for something elegant but understated," she said. "A gift for someone important." Mia didn't miss a beat. "We have some exquisite options that might be perfect," she said, gesturing toward the jewelry section. "Would you like me to show you our latest collection?" Eleanor nodded, and Mia led her to the display cases, expertly describing each piece with a depth of knowledge that impressed even Nathaniel. As he observed from a distance, he could see his mother's stern expression softening, a clear sign that she was both impressed and satisfied. Nathaniel approached just as Eleanor was admiring a delicate pearl necklace. "Hello, Mom," he greeted her, a smile playing at his lips. "Surprise visit?" Eleanor turned, her expression shifting from surprise to delight. "Nathaniel," she said, her voice warm, "I wanted to see the changes you've been talking so much about." Nathaniel gestured toward Mia, who was watching the interaction with a mixture of curiosity and pride. "Mom, this is Mia Thompson, the manager who's transformed this store." Eleanor's eyes sparkled with approval as she looked at Mia. "I've heard a lot about you," she said, "and I must say, everything I've seen so far exceeds my expectations." Mia's cheeks flushed with pride. "Thank you, Mrs. Carter," she said. "It's an honor to have your support." Eleanor turned to Nathaniel, her voice lowering to a tone of genuine admiration. "You've done something incredible here, my son," she said. "You've built something meaningful, something that will last." Nathaniel's heart swelled with gratitude. "It's not just me," he said. "It's people like Mia and the entire team. They're the heart of this store." Eleanor nodded, her eyes glistening. "I'm so proud of you," she whispered. That evening, as the store closed and the last customers left, Nathaniel gathered the staff for a brief meeting. The sun was setting, casting a golden glow over Los Angeles, and there was a sense of peace in the air. "Today was a special day," Nathaniel began, his voice carrying a quiet strength. "I had the privilege of seeing how far we've come, and it's because of all of you. You've embraced change, supported one another, and made this store a place where everyone is welcome." The staff cheered, and Mia stepped forward, her smile radiant. "We couldn't have done it without your vision and support, Mr. Carter," she said. "And we're not stopping here. We're going to keep building, keep growing." Nathaniel's smile widened. "Exactly," he said. "This is just the beginning. We're going to continue making Carter Lux a brand that stands for more than luxury. We stand for respect, for inclusivity, and for the belief that everyone deserves to feel valued." The staff erupted into applause, and Nathaniel's heart filled with hope. He had started this journey wanting to create a change, but he had found something even more powerful: a community, a family. And as he looked at the faces of the people who had made it all possible, he knew that the future of Carter Lux was bright. That night, Nathaniel found himself standing at the large windows of his office, looking out over the city. The lights of Los Angeles sparkled like stars, and he felt a quiet sense of fulfillment. He thought about the journey he had taken, from the injustices he had faced to the man he had become, a man who used his success to uplift others. But he also knew that the work was never truly done. There were more stores to visit, more people to inspire, and more change to create. And that was a challenge he was more than ready to face. With one last look at the city he loved, Nathaniel turned away from the window, his heart full. This was only the beginning, and he was ready for whatever came next.